It's despicable that a reputable head coach could come out and say this when he doesn't get his way or things don't go his way. The narcissist in him doesn't allow those things to happen, and it's ridiculous. But when he's not on top, and the parity in college football he's been talking about, go talk to coaches who coach for him. You'll find out all the parity. Go dig into wherever he's been. You can find out anything. Some people think they're God. Go dig into how God did his deal. You may find out about a guy that a lot of things you don't want to know. We built him up to be the czar of football. Go dig into his past.
Have you had any contact with Nick since?
No. Oh, he's called.
You just didn't take the call?
Not going to. We're done.
Okay. And
he shows you who he is.
And then I just wanted to.
He's the greatest ever, huh?
And then I just wanted
when
to.
You got all the advantages. It's easy. You can call me anything you want to call me. You ain't calling me a cheat. I don't cheat and I don't lie. So I learned that when I was a kid. If you did, the old man slapped you side of the head. Maybe somebody should have slapped him.
Is it going to be awkward?
And awkward about what?
When you have to face it or have to.
I don't mind confrontation. Live with it my whole life. Kind of like it myself. Like we said, never has been parity. Certain people never follow the rules anyway.
My goodness. There was a lot packed into about 10 minutes from Jimbo Fisher yesterday. And it's even more compelling for me, Peter, because I'm sitting here in West Virginia, the sister city to the town where Jimbo Fisher grew up. 20 minutes from where Nick Saban grew up. Jimbo Fisher grew up in Clarksburg. Wow. We live outside of Bridgeport. And it's funny because, let me just diverge here, because I've talked about this recently. My wife gives me a hard time anytime I criticize anything Nick Saban says because he's a West Virginian and we should apply some sort of West Virginia courtesy. I never got that memo during my years of living in West Virginia. However, in this fight, it's one thing to be from the state. It's another thing to be from the town. My wife grew up in Clarksburg. Jimbo Fisher grew up in Clarksburg. My brother-in-law played on a baseball team with him years ago. We are Team Jimbo. Sorry, Nick. Right state, wrong city. We are Team Jimbo in this one, and it makes it even more fascinating. It's the best feud in West Virginia since Hatfield versus McCoy, in my opinion.
Look, you know what was amazing to me, as smart as Nick Saban is about football and about the world, he had to know when he started naming names that this was going to be all-time ugly. And, and again, look, I don't know what Nick Saban knows. I don't know what Jimbo Fisher knows. I don't know what Deion Sanders knows. We'll get to that in a bit. But, this has always been, at least in my opinion, like one of the great secrets, one of the great open secrets in all of sports. How college coaches procure players. And Mike, I'll just say this. 2 years ago, when it was kind of being birthed, this whole idea of NIL, of paying college players, I always thought college players should be paid. But I did think one other thing. Once you start to pay different college players different amounts of money, once you start paying the star quarterback and the star wide receiver, once you start paying them, quote, what they're worth, end quote, that was going to open up the biggest can of worms in college sports scandal history. And there's been a lot of college sports scandals. So to me, what happened yesterday, you could just see coming a mile away, 2 miles away, 2 years away, and it finally happened. And honestly, I hope for the good of the college game that this all gets out in the open now. I hope that Saban actually says what he knows. And I hope that Jimbo Fisher actually says what he knows. I doubt they will. But that, to me, would allow college football and college basketball to start to get on the road to trying to figure out what is actually fair when it decides it's going to pay players.
And let's pull this back to square one for a little bit so people understand how we got to where we are. For years, there was officially equality of resources. Nick Saban used the word parity this week, and people misinterpreted it because he used the wrong word. He said there used to be parity in college football. He's talking about what you could give the players. Every institution could only give the players so much. Room, board, tuition, fees, snacks. Snacks were added in the past 10 years. The snacks were big. Snacks make all the difference in the world. But there was a limit, and that was all implemented by the NCAA. And Peter, what happened was, in those days, you had a hard official limit on what could be given to the players. And unofficially, there would be practices where some shady characters would funnel money to players. Some shady coaches would ensure that in order to close the deal with the best players, the ones they had to have, that someone operating in those shadows would ensure that there was a bag of cash or a handful of $100 bills that was given or whatever. Just various violations that were happening to get players to come to Tuscaloosa or Gainesville or College Station or Morgantown or places where kids otherwise from 18 to 21 would not want, frankly, to live. So, once it became apparent last year, it was a U.S. Supreme Court opinion. It was a narrow ruling, but there was a concurring opinion written by Brett Kavanaugh that made it clear that this NCAA model is an antitrust violation. You've got all of these different schools coming together under the umbrella of the NCAA and saying, oh, you can only give so much. You're fixing your labor costs. So the floodgates open. So boosters who otherwise weren't inclined to be party to breaking rules. And you no longer had to be careful. You no longer had to be secret. The floodgates opened. And I've believed ever since Nick Saban started complaining about this, he knows he can't compete with schools that have access to more people, more money, bigger cities, larger markets, places that'll be more enticing for young kids to live, like Southern California. That's what he's concerned about. It's the Wild West, and he's going to have a harder time recruiting because he's going to have fewer dollars available to him than other schools would have. I've believed that from the moment he started complaining about it, and I think that's the root cause of the explosion that happened this week.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.